was like this weird Disney Channel, Let's Fix the Earth, and you had like Miley Cyrus and the Jonas Brothers singing their song of change. That's not in our commercials nowadays. If Miley Cyrus and the Jonas Brothers got together right now and sang a song about the weather changing, I would lose my ever-loving mind. If they did a remake, that's the only remake I need. I admittedly downloaded Webkinz World about a year ago. It was a daily nurtured habit of mine. People swap wives. We were watching people swap their lives on Wife Swap. Like, it was a wild place because we need a place to mourn that world.
Where did she go? Is she hiding in me? Behind dreams I used to dream. Help me see the world the way I used to do. Life was just good. Life was just good.
Welcome, ladies, to the official Her Girlhood podcast. This is a place for emotional self-love where we reflect and talk all things we experience as women, as girls, growing up in girlhood. We're going to get nostalgic, we're going to get modern, we're going to get weird, and we're going to get niche, because that is what it means to be a girl. Today, we're going to be talking about our obsession with nostalgia, because nostalgia is one of those things that I have seen pop off lately. So many people are obsessed with nostalgia, and I don't think it's a coincidence. In fact, I think this is something that we are mourning. We are grieving something. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is, for one, I am one of the most nostalgic people. In fact, that is why I started this podcast, because I feel like so many of us want to reflect on our experiences growing up with Barbies, growing up with anything and everything that is very specific to growing up as a girl, especially from the 90s to the early 2000s. We are almost as nostalgic about the early 2000s as we are about the 50s, which I love the 50s, don't get me wrong. I love a vintage moment, but let's be real, the 50s had a lot of problems, and we would not want to actually live in the 50s, yet we really fantasize over this like glamorous 50s lifestyle where there was a one-income house and everything was just perfect and no problems were to be had. Growing up in the early 2000s, I think, was one of the coolest things that I got to experience as a human, and I think one of the most niche experiences that anyone will ever go through. And I want to explain why, because I feel like the reason why we are so obsessed with the early 2000s, with owning VHS tapes and playing them for our kids, with having a set of Barbies, with collecting toys, with getting weird, watching old infomercials. Like, yes, I feel like this is happening with other generations, but we take it to a whole other level, and it comes from the internet, but it also comes from a level of resilience that I think we ended up working through. Let's talk about it. The group that I'm specifically talking about is from the 90s to about 2005. These are the women that I think went through the most transformative time in history when it comes to literally the internet. Without the internet transforming our lives in the early 2000s, this would not be a conversation we'd be having. In fact, this video would not be happening. Our obsession with the nostalgia of our time, with the quiet calm that was not having to look at a phone at night. You had your diary, you had your journal, you had your magazine, you had your brain without noise. And we miss that. I think it's coming from a place of mourning what isn't there anymore. And I don't know about you, but something that kind of drives me absolutely nuts is when people from older generations will be like, well, back in our day, you had to come home when the lights went off on the streets and drink out of the hose and fucking hate yourself. And it was like, same. Except the crazy part was that in the middle of it, it transformed into something insane, into something that nobody expected. The age of the internet imploded in a way that I don't think anyone was prepared for. And that is why we're weird. And I believe that is why we are hilarious, because we had to watch the world go from quiet, calm, and maybe peaceful to loud in your face. You started off your childhood with yourself, with your siblings. You probably had cable TV. You probably had a VHS player. You might have even had cassettes, okay? That is how much it's changed. It's changed so, so much. And you know what? This reminds me a lot of the Victorian era. And I know you're probably like, why are we bringing up the Victorians, those wacky little people from the olden days? Why does that matter now? You want to know why? Because at the turn of the century, when it became 1900, we went from literally using a freaking horse to get around to a vehicle. We went from going to a play or literally just going outside to movies, to theaters, to then quickly it becoming something that was in your house. And that slowly stayed. You had your TV in your house from the 1950s to the early 2000s till now, right? That standard has stayed, a TV in the house. It might have been a thing of wealthier people, but that was an invention that was a very slow burn, right? Your phones, they changed. You had your phone on the wall, and then you had your other phone on the wall, and then you had your phone that plugged in. It was always plugged in. And then we got cell phones. But they didn't have much to do. You could call. And then all of a sudden, in the early 2000s, you went from TV in your house, phone on the wall, to your phone is everywhere. This bitch is everything. This is your map. This is your music. This is your mode of transportation. This is your job. This is everything at the turn of the century. So yeah, Gen Z is a little weird because we went from this very, 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 very quiet early 2000s way of living to what we have now, which arguably is overstimulating. And we saw both of it. So you want to know what? We are very nostalgic about our childhoods. We are very nostalgic about Hannah Montana and the infomercials. And we'll sit and we'll watch weird things on the internet just to get a glimmer of that feeling again, because that feeling does not exist anymore. That world that we grew up in is gone. And that is insane. And I'm going to say this, and maybe this is an unpopular opinion, but I do feel like things, yes, evolved, right? In the 30s, you had phones on the wall. In the 80s, you had phones on the wall. In the 90s, you had phones on the wall. You might have had a cell phone, okay? You might have had a cell phone, but that cell phone didn't do shit, right? That was about 70, 100 years of the same thing, just slightly more modern versions, slightly easier versions, but pretty much the same concept. You called people. You called your girls. That's it. Nothing else, right? Same thing with television. I have to double check this because I want to make sure that I'm not doing this right. Because as much as I love history, I do want to know, I'm going to ask my phone, when did TVs become modernized in homes? Let's just make sure I'm doing this right, because honestly, I don't want to do this wrong. The late 40s to 50s. Okay, I was right. So in the 50s, it became way more popular to have a TV. So you have about 50 years of a TV in the house. Sure, it got color, but the standard of TV in the house was a pretty slow burn, okay? A very slow burn. It was this, you had 2 channels, you had 3 channels, you had 4 channels, and now you had 50 channels. And then you got to the early 2000s where you had a lot of channels, right? But it was a slow incline, a slow, healthy incline. It wasn't a culture shock. It wasn't going from what we had as young people, which was you had your PBS, you had your Disney Channel, your Nickelodeon, your TLC. We were watching people swap wives. We were watching people swap their wives on Wife Swap. Like, it was a wild place on the television, right? To then, you're about middle school aged. And then this thing came along. And this thing changed the game for everything. You didn't have multiple devices. You had one. And I really feel like the reason that we are so nostalgic is because we got to see the world right before it changed. And then it changed everything. Everything is different in a very fast amount of time. And not only is it different, but this happened when we were from middle school to teenagers. at the most pivotal part of our childhoods, the era where we're finding ourselves, that is when we have access to this. We might have had a computer on the wall. Again, you had to go to the internet. The internet wasn't just with you. You had to go to the internet, okay? We went from that to this was with us. And we're all just children figuring out how the hell this thing is going to be used in our lives. And boy, did we have some fun. We had Vine, we had YouTube. The way that media itself is completely different. If you want to do anything when it comes to a business, you want to know what you need? You need short form video content. Things have changed so much. And I think that fast-paced, easy access to information overload that we had as young people, we're overstimulated because we didn't grow up like Gen Alpha did. We didn't grow up like the other generations are growing up where this is the norm. Just like the people in the 80s grew up with a TV on the wall and their phones on the wall. And in the 70s and 60s, it was the same thing. We grew up while this was changing. And I think we're going crazy because we literally were, it was like we woke up in a fever dream. All of a sudden, it's loud and we're tired and we want to go put on our VHS tape and watch our Barbie movie because you know what? It makes us feel good. We want to go through our Barbie bin and look at them, sniff the hair because some of them smell good, right? Like we want to do that because it gives us that glimmer of what the world used to be like. Because we literally saw it change before our eyes at a very pivotal time in our lives. So that's why Gen Zs are hilarious. You kind of have to be when everything is freaking weird. And you know what? That's why the Victorians were weird. Because they went from literally needing to use a horse to get by to now they have movies and films and telephones and they have cars. All that changed at the turn of the century. Now 100 years later, all of that changed again. And we are the weird ones now. We're the Victorians of this generation. We're weird. We're drinking Tide Pod juice. We're having some fun. A lot of us might be on OnlyFans. We're kind of figuring it out as we go. And I really feel like this is something that no one is talking about. And that is why I created this podcast. Because I want to talk about everything regarding girlhood, growing up in the early 2000s. Because we need a place to mourn that world. We need a place to mourn what was once so peaceful and beautiful. And to celebrate these sons of a guns. Because honestly, these are fun. Without this, I would not be doing this. And this is pretty cool, and I really like doing this, and I don't think I would have had the ability to do this in the Victorian era. Why? Women weren't allowed to do jack shit. So I'm not gonna sit here and like fantasize over the past, but I am in some ways because I do think that the past is really what's shaping us now. And as women, we got to have the best of both worlds, which brought a lot of strength to us, I think. Oh, this has been so much fun already. I've been wanting to say this for so long, and I'm so excited to have a place to share my deepest, darkest thoughts about how I feel about being a woman and growing up in girlhood and experiencing life as a woman in this day and age, because guess what? We're all a little messed up here, and we need a place to safely talk about it. I did want to share some thoughts I had on how I'm kind of going through this feeling and what I'm doing personally to help myself not crash out too much and miss it too much, because let's be real, I fear we're starting to miss it. And when I watch like older shows from when I was either a baby or just before I was born, it gives me so much anxiety with how much I miss it. For instance, Gilmore Girls. Perfect example of a show from the turn of the century that I watch and I just feel a little sad. Like, it's beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I miss that world. And when I watch that show, it's like getting that glimpse of how quiet and peaceful it was. Even if you didn't necessarily live in a small town like Stars Hollow, I still feel like you got that because the world didn't feel so big. The world was just your town and maybe an hour drive to something cool. You didn't have the internet. You didn't have this scariness of who could be watching me right now and what are they going to do with that. You had your neighbors and a doorbell. and that is how you got to your friends. So how am I adjusting? How are we healing? Obviously, one of the ways that I'm doing that is I'm making this podcast because I do feel like this is a conversation that needs to be an ongoing, healthy, self-care, self-love conversation where we are expressing pleasure in our girlhood and enjoying the good, the bad, and the ugly, reflecting on it, healing from it, learning from it, laughing about it, because let's be real, it was a wild place, right? It brings me so much joy to be able to think on the fact that I get to have really niche, fun conversations with the internet about things that I have always wanted to talk about with more than just my best friends, because they've heard me talk about it. And I'm going to be bringing those hoes in here, and we're also going to be talking about it with you because I have so many fun and exciting ideas to share with the world and so many fun topics. How else am I healing from this awful turn of the century drama that I'm experiencing? The other thing that I'm doing is I'm participating in healthy amounts of nostalgia. For instance, I admittedly downloaded Webkinz World about a year ago. Now, I'm not playing it right now. I've kind of stopped, but it was admittedly a habit. It was a daily nurtured habit of mine. And you know what? When I was going through the thick of my divorce, you want to know what my favorite thing to do was at the end of the day? Play mother frickin' Webkinz World. To open up a world that I actually had as a kid. I got very lucky and I remembered my password. And I will say, not to like give my password away, but please raise your hand in the chat if any of you guys are using the same passwords that you used for your Webkinz account, for your modern accounts. Because my sisters were literally just telling me that they still use their Webkinz account password for their passwords now. Like, change it up a little bit, right? Because like you have to add things to your passwords now, right? But the base is still literally my Webkinz account password, which is insane and funny and weird and strange. Really random, really niche, but I just wanted to put that out there. Participating in healthy, silly little moments of nostalgia has given me a feeling of, okay, I can see why we put this in the past, but also this is so fun. And I will say, I had so much fun playing Webkinz World, spinning that wheel of wow every morning. You have no idea. You have no idea how much joy that brought me. I recently found my Nintendo DS. I opened that puppy up, and you want to know the first place I went? I went to PictoChat. I colored that mother-loving screen black, sent that little button that made that really good, satisfying sound. And the dopamine, the rush of joy that came to my brain. We love healthy doses of nostalgia. As long as it's not bringing you severe amounts of anxiety, which, let's be real, sometimes it can, because you realize just how much things have changed, and it is sad. Another thing that I do is I would get drunk with my friends, my friend that I'm actually going to host on this podcast very soon, and we all watched infomercials from our childhood. And like, the lizard part of my brain that just clicks when you hear like the stupid commercials, because commercials were so long. I do not remember that they were that long, but it's because we cannot handle a 3-second commercial now, because let's be real, commercials and ads are everywhere. We're over it. But back in the day, they were a treat. You sat down and you watched the Reese's Puffs soundtrack and you danced, you sang, and you memorized the words. We don't have that as much these days. In fact, you're skipping those ads as fast as you can. I loved like watching the Baby Alive commercials, because how creepy is that doll, right? The Barbie commercials were always iconic. Oh, the FREE, that spells free commercial. Like the songs, there were jingles. We got creative in our ads. Now it's literally just buy this now, bitch. Or skip this ad, please. But we sat the fuck down and we watched and engaged in these commercials. In fact, I remember calling my siblings in when it was a funny one. Do you remember the Disney Channel like interludes that we would have where they were random eating around the world? We had this obsession with the earth and helping it. It was like this weird Disney Channel, let's fix the earth. And you had like Miley Cyrus and the Jonas Brothers singing their song of change. That's not in our commercials nowadays. If Miley Cyrus and the Jonas Brothers got together right now and sang a song about the weather changing, I would lose my ever-loving mind. If they did a remake, that's the only remake I need. You can remake anything. I need to see Selena Gomez fake sing. I need to see Demi Lovato belt. I need to see the Jonas Brothers move their freaking hair. I need to see the ugly, respectfully, they're hot now. I just get that straight. Joe Jonas. Joe Jonas is on my For You page since I've been single, right? Like, we are very attracted to these men. But that straightened hair, I mean, it's tea. That hair was hiding things. That hair was hiding lore. Was probably hiding trauma, to be honest. We love that. And honestly, this is probably getting clipped on TikTok. And Joe, if you see this and you watch this for whatever godforsaken reason, I would love, I know you guys invite everyone on your stage. Bring on Miley Cyrus, bring on Demi, bring all the friends, Selena, get them all, right? And I need that cover. I need that Friends for Change cover. I don't even know what it's called, but the way I ate that song, These are ways that I'm enjoying some wonderful moments of nostalgia. Talking about it right now, oh my God, get your friends, girls. Sit them down. Get niche. Play the music from your childhood. My sister and I, the other night, we sat down and we played our favorite songs. Do you guys remember it? I was a little old for this. The Calling All the Monsters song. I forget what her name was. Such a bop. She was like 12 years old. But this song is fire, okay? Get your sisters, because usually that's where the core memories come from, is with your sisters or your cousins. Get those bitches, sit their asses down, and play some Hannah Montana. Sit them down and play some old Jonas Brothers songs. Sit them down and play niche-ass Cheetah Girl songs. And the way that the lizard part of your brain will heal itself by playing this music. Honestly, these legendary songs. Dance, get drunk, do drugs, all the things, right? Or don't do drugs, right? Enjoy it, because it is such a good feeling. Yes, people in the 80s, I sound like I'm talking to them like they're ancient relics, but people of the 80s, my parents, my Gen Xers, right? They do not get it. The way that the Disney Channel and Nickelodeon lore was, how deep and rooted it was in our lives, the music, the songs, the lore, the magazine, we just loved that. You know, writing Joe Jonas in your notebook and putting your name and his name together and like getting weird. Being a girl is so fun. And honestly, that's again why I made this podcast. Because being a girl and talking about how much fun it was is gonna heal us. And I hope to heal us a little bit and have a little bit of fun on my bed. Because I don't have the money for a set, so we're gonna have my podcast on my bed where I'm the most comfy. Another thing that I'm doing to heal this mourning, this grief that I'm feeling for this old era that no longer exists, is I am picking up hobbies that young me loved before bed every night. Because let's be real, when you were young and it was just your thoughts, you had no phone, I had me, myself, and my insane brain. Probably a book or a journal. You might have been reading Diary of a Wimpy Kid or the other diary-related books. And you know what you did? You tried to be Greg Humphrey. Is that his name? Humphrey? Wild name. Either way. Did anybody else have that? Where you had to have a journal? Or the Alex Russo episode where she was like drawing in her diary and like would go into it. And it was like her pictures and drawings. And I remember watching that episode and I had like 2 full spreads in my diary where it was like full pictures of my day or my dream world. It was so embarrassing. I loved sitting down with my journal and drawing and doodling and writing lists. At the end of the day, it was kind of just like this quiet time to myself. I really want to bring that back. And so I have. I've been writing in my journal every night and it has been helping and healing. And I know journaling is not this new thing. Everyone's kind of talking about it right now. But if you do it in a playful way, it's actually really healing. Get some weird things, glue shit in there. Get weird. Get in touch with your 8-year-old self. That is what this podcast is all about. It's all about healing. It's all about getting in touch with ourselves again and talking about pleasure in that way. Enjoying life as a woman. How we so often put our needs aside for everyone else around us. Our bodies are in constant pain and we're constantly dealing with the sacrifices of being a woman. And I really want us to get in touch with our feminine side. So if you guys enjoyed this, I would absolutely love if you guys would follow me all on the socials. I have all of them linked. This is the Her Girlhood podcast. And give it a rating because honestly, I'm in a really tough situation. I could use a little rating here. You know what I mean? I could use a little confidence boost. I lost everything last year. I had to move back in with my parents after my husband cheated on me. And this person was in my life for about 10 years. Not fun. did not enjoy that. I'm now a single mom. And with that amount of change, I realized just how much I was missing being a girl and not of service to men, to just truly get in touch with my feminine side. So if you guys want to be on the journey with me and have a little fun here, this is the Her Girlhood podcast, and I would love to see you next week.